Welcome guys back to my video. It's been a while since my last main upload on my channel, so apologies. It's been a little bit busy, but predominantly trying to play Shadowlands, which is what this video is. So this is my experience, thoughts on the starting stages up until a specific point in the expansion. So to preface this rather, I have got up to the story where just a little after you've picked your covenant and unlocked rune carving, which is in the later stage. So this video will contain some spoilers, but I'm not going to go so much into depth into this video. So this is about my experience playing the game so far. I will cover like lore, what I think of some of the more in-depth intricacies of the story so far, and some of the content as I actually do them in another video. So this one is initial experience of my playthrough so far. So this will cover some areas to what I think of each zone and to surmise the experience so far. So otherwise it's actually been pretty good. Actually, I've enjoyed it. Now I'm actually on a very heavy populated server, so it's been difficult to play Shadowlands on launch. I mean, I've seen queues of like 3,000 to log in, which has been quite difficult. So I've been quite behind, and when I finish my shift at work, you come in and it's been difficult to play. Otherwise I have to log in later into the evening, and I've only got a few hours to do that before I genuinely needed my sleep to work the next day. So that's the unfortunate aspects to it. The story turned out to be a lot better than expected. Again, I did no research prior to going into the expansion. Everything was blind playthrough as someone that just wants to play a game. I'm not so fussed about doing prior research into this. I'm not going head first to do like world first or massively server progression in any of the endgame content, so I'm taking my time with this. One thing I can say about the story is it's very how World of Warcraft it is. It's very much an MMO without the Warcraft. So again, like I said, I got up to the point where you will go up to your covenant, pick your covenant rather, and up until then there's no Horde versus Alliance. That seems to be very moot with this expansion so far. The thing that really popped into my head when I was just starting out, so when you start out an expansion, it's very even surreal for Warcraft. It's not how you go into starting Shadowlands. It was a necessity to how they did it. It was very abrupt, where apparently not apparently, as you play the game, the faction leaders get kidnapped rather easily. They're supposed to be quite powerful beings for their given respective world, but there you go, they get captured easily. Into the maw, which is essentially what this whole expansion seems to be centered around. Your nemesis of this expansion is located there. Can't say the pacing was great, but as you do that zone, I would say it's not greatly paced and doesn't answer so much, but you just encounter your faction leaders that you try to save. But as you go along, then you go into your actual new zone of Oribos, which is the new hub of the expansion. But I quite like how they've done this hub. So this hub is centered around the story and the sort of inner workings to what happens to the outer zones that it sort of watches. They don't seem to intervene in their current circumstances, but it seems to overwatch everything, but one thing I like about what they've done is how other aspects of the game, when it comes to your character progression and even story progression, isn't entirely held here. So this is where your transportation hub is to go wherever you want, including back to your old world. But there's no auction house here. You'll have to go back to your cities, your faction cities, to do the covenant. Is after you've actually done the questing, you get to pick a covenant, and you have you're actually located in that place to do those quests, pick up quests, and continue that specific story there. So that's good. So it makes you move around about. And the rune carving is in another zone entirely, and even the content for that questing is, or costing for content, whatever it is, that's located in that zone. Very specific. It's all different types of content. It makes you spread out to go to, which is actually fantastic. I've always asked for this. We want character progression. We want it in multitudes of avenues, separate avenues, and we've got that now, which is great. Right. So that's, I'll touch upon some of that a little bit later, but as I was saying, when you go from the mall, as the story tries to urge some sense of danger to what you're experiencing, but when you're playing through it, you kind of don't, at least in my experience, until you get to the end of that zone and you get to really see who the bad guy is. But other than him having a big army behind him, he doesn't seem to show his hand to what he's capable of to see if he is some sort of danger, because nothing really explains the extent of what he can actually do. Obviously, as he is a being of another plane, of a... How am I trying to explain this? So, Shadowlands isn't a hell. It is just another realm that watches the afterlife as it was. So this is the afterlife, and where all death happens in the mortal realms go to. So this is where they are facilitated to. So I can only presume from here there might be further reallocated to potentially other realms. It's difficult to say, but that would make a little bit more sense if the... I'm trying to see what it's called. I think there was something. There was a map that there was a mortal realm in the middle. You've got these realms just outside that, which is where Shadowlands resides, and you've got an overarching realm beyond that, which seems to be where the divine entities of that segment belongs to. So just to preface it, there's the void, there's the light, there's the fell, I think, the arcane, and death. Was it void in the same? I think it was just death. So there is some differences there. So the void and the light are opposing forces, but it doesn't seem like the other ones are opposing directly. But it seems like most of them are opposing the light. I have to say, I think the dark might have been the realm of death, but it seemed like that's intentional. Like it's like kind of like it's meant to be there. It's not like they're trying to. It's like an invasive force. But even then, it seemed like they are in conflict with each other, so to have their own military force. So that's another thing that really caught my attention, was the, as you're questing, is the autonomy of the NPCs, as it were, in each realm, because you've gone to a further plane down to Earth, or down to Azeroth it became, where the zones had like a civilization system in place. Like they had commerce, they had villages, they had towns, and in some cases tax in the netherworld, where you're meant to be looking after, watching over, presiding over death itself. I found that really bizarre and out of place, but I'm guessing it's how do you reinvent questing. I mentioned earlier in the video about some of the endpoints of the story, well, the main points of the story before it starts progressing in its own thing and its own content as well. So like your covenant is, this is the interesting bit. When you choose your covenant, your main campaign story continues on with that one. So the other zones that you quest through just cut off in a way. You can still do them, but you have to switch, but there's a bit of a catch to that, because each covenant ties you to a specific skills and abilities, which actually are quite nice actually. None is bad. I would say you pick what's your style and the damage will be there, but I have a feeling with scaling over time some skills might be better than others, but we'll have to see how balance plays out in that. But yeah, with the covenants, when you pick them, so this will allow you to unlock further quests. You'll have your dailies with that. You can still do reputation for the other factions or reputation covenants, and you can, I believe you can still have access to the quartermaster. But your story is specifically that, and with that particular covenant, so you pick what suits you really, what sort of thing that interests you, what sort of style, what sort of aesthetic you're after. I personally really like Revendreth over the others. I really like the Victorian England sort of style. I'm sure that there's a more specific name for this, but I really enjoy that aesthetic. Some parts of World of Warcraft, I think, what's it called, Gulneas? And I think some parts of Azeroth as well has this style, and I really enjoy it, including the music that's in it as well. Even the sass from the NPCs when you're questing is actually quite interesting. Yeah, pick what you want. There's no bad choices. Just pick the style you like, and I quite like that. So like I say, your equipment, your gearing goes from your covenant, so you go away from your hub to do that, so that's great. And you acquire you can acquire some of the gear over time. Again, you do your reps and any sort of aesthetic and sort of what's the word I was going to say? Aesthetics, rune carving, which is very interesting to do. So this is a little bit more back to roots with World of Warcraft, where legendaries, which is what rune crafting ties into, appears to be more of a optional content itself. Like, this has its own story, which is fantastic. It has its own content piece to where you do it, which is great, because, well, the content piece is Torghast, or Torghast, however you want to say that, which is it's a layered dungeon experience. You could do solo in a group, and you just sort of go through it. The end goal from those essentially is the currency that you need to craft or make the legendary items. Shadowlands at this moment in time offers on launch quite a lot of variation of content to do, which I love. It's not just dungeons and raids and a small bit of crafting. They made crafting seemingly just a little bit tougher, so hopefully value of items such as raw materials and the crafted items themselves hold value. So I really hope that is the case throughout the expansion as well. Like I said, you got the covenants and the side stuff that goes with it, and the story that goes with it as well. It's very what was it called again? Yeah, it's very story focused on that. So if you want to do story is of that particular covenant, you pick that one. Then there's a rune carving, which is its own content in Torghast, so that's completely separate from dungeons, so your character power does factor into it. But yeah, you can go up the difficulty for that, so it's a very optional challenge. Pick what you want, pick it at your own pace and how you go along. So it's nice to have, though it is still a dungeon type content, it's nice to have different rewards for those type of content. So there's a lot more stuff to do now, a lot more stuff to grind for as well, because that was missing. Like, we want something that we always wanted to grind for that wasn't just tied to everything together. We didn't want the grind that was bottled into just one thing. So it's nice to have Torghast as a separate grinding content you could do in your own time, do outside of whenever you want, so it's something there to do. The renown stuff seems to be gated a little bit, but it's at a pacing, so you can keep doing it, so it's grinding in it, it's kind of a grind in itself. So that's great. I really enjoy that. So even the dungeons, I mean, I've only done the normal so far, so we're going to heroics and mythics. Couldn't just AoE them down in random groups. That was quite reassuring to see. So it's seeing them become a little bit tougher, which is great. Stuff is more engaging from start to finish. Like, I didn't feel like I didn't enjoy this. I needed to stop playing, or I'm looking to stop playing because it's not there yet. The classes have improved, they're a little bit more engaging, they're a little bit more in depth to them. They're still relatively pruned in comparison to where they were before the great prune they did after Missing Pandaria. But hopefully, as more, as it goes down the line with the raiding, at least I can hopefully get to experience a more raiding centric focus of my specs. And also with the legendaries with their procs, and also it seemed like there might be like a set tier. It looks like that. That'll be a nice return if that is the case, but otherwise the experience so far in initial thoughts has been great. The leveling's good, the pacing seems to be okay. I do think it's a little bit quick. I would like Blizzard to design the pacing in a way that you need to do dungeons in between. That's my honest opinion. That's how the older expansions they were. You had to do dungeons. So this is a very PvE centric game, so it'd be nice if Blizzard encouraged people going to dungeons a bit more. So hopefully Blizzard expands on everything they've got. Torghast is designed to be expanded on, which is great. So they designed it from the ground up to do that. You can easily see that. Looking at how the Covenants are playing out, yes, it looks like they can easily build on those. Anything they could add, be fantastic. Haven't touched PvP yet, but I'll go into that another time. But I just want to gloss over the initial experience so far. So, bit of a rambling video, but I wanted to make a video about my first impressions of Shadowlands. So I've enjoyed it, hope you guys have as well if you've played it. If you haven't, you're thinking about it and you are a World of Warcraft player, give it a shot. It's really good in my honest opinion. So yeah, catch you guys in the next video for lore orientated stuff for Shadowlands. See you guys, peace out.